sometimes when we want to be like everybody else, we can get into trouble. Listening to other people that don't trust in God and His Word can get us into trouble. Trying to please others instead of God always ends up worse for us. And for the others as well, often enough. So when I was, let's see here, maybe your age, I don't know. When it would have been? First grade, probably. Anyway, I get on a bus and go to school, and I had a tin lunch box, like a metal box, flimsy metal with close it and had snaps on it. Anyway, so I'd usually have a sandwich and some other stuff in there, vegetables, and because my mom thought vegetables was a good idea, but maybe fruit and stuff like that. Anyway, I was at school, they said, about first grade, and I'd open my lunch one time, and all the guys around me saying, "Oh, you got an egg sandwich." That's, kind of making fun of the egg sandwich. And I was like, all right. So I didn't eat the sandwich. They saw the sandwich there, and I didn't even open it was in plastic wrap. So I ate all the other stuff and put it back in my lunch box. And that evening, when I went to get on the bus, I was starting to climb up the steps of the bus, and the lunch box broke open, and the sandwich fell out and got stepped on. It was squashed. I picked it up because I had to clean up after myself. And I realized, it wasn't even an egg sandwich. In fact, my mom had made a cake the night before. Now, this is back in the day when you didn't get treats very often. We didn't, my folks weren't rich or anything. And after she made the cake, she had leftover frosting, and she'd put frosting on the inside of that sandwich. And here I had missed out. Here now it was stepped on and it was dirty. I couldn't eat it. I had missed out on the best sandwich I could have thought of at that age, a frosting sandwich, because I listened to what other people were saying and I was concerned about what they thought. Lost out on something good because I listened to what other people said. In Israel, only the priests were supposed to offer certain sacrifices. Saul was king. And the Philistines had invaded the Israelites. They'd taken some of the land. So the Israelites went to fight. Samuel had agreed to come to their army camp and meet with Saul in 7 days. And pretty hard to read from the Bible if you don't have it right there with you, huh? So I'm going to be looking at 1 Samuel 13. Starting in verse 5 and going through 12. The Philistines assembled to fight Israel with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers as numerous as the sand on the seashore. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it gives you an idea how many there were. They went and camped at Michmash, east of Bethaven. When the men of Israel saw that their situation was critical and their army was hard pressed, they hid in the caves and thickets among the rocks and in pits and cisterns. That's holes in the ground. Usually gather water in a cistern. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained at Gilgal, and all the troops with him were quaking with fear. He waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel, but Samuel didn't come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So Saul said, "Bring me the burnt offerings and the fellowship offerings." And Saul offered up the burnt offerings. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. "What have you done?" asked Samuel. Saul replied, "When I saw the men were scattering and that you didn't come at the set time, and the Philistines were assembling at Michmash, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering." And Samuel said, "You acted foolishly." Foolishly because that wasn't his place. That was something that God had ordained that only the priests would do. So he was worried. Why was he worried? Because all his people were scared of the Philistines and they were scattering, and he wanted to do something about it. So what did Saul do that was wrong? What did he do that was wrong?
He made the offering when Samuel was there.
He made the offering that only Samuel was supposed to do. Why did he do it? Why did he do it? It was because all the people around him he was afraid they were going to leave him. He was concerned about what people thought, not what God thought. What should he have done? What do you think he should have done?
He shouldn't have done the offering.
Okay, he should have waited for Samuel, right? Yeah, exactly. The interesting thing is, even though Saul did wrong, God gave him victories over the Philistines. In fact, he especially gave him victories, as we read in other parts later on, through his son Jonathan. But then God gave Saul another mission. And we're going to look at 1 Samuel 15, 1 through 6. 15, long 14. Samuel said to Saul, "I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel. So listen now to this message from the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt. Now, go and attack the Amalekites and totally destroy everything that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death the men, the women, the children, the infants, the cattle, the sheep, the camels, and the donkeys." So Saul summoned the men and mustered them at Telaim, 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men from Judah. Saul went to the city of Amalek and set an ambush in the ravine. Then he said to the Kenites, "Go away, leave the Amalekites, so I do not destroy you along with them, for you showed kindness to the Israelites when they came up out of Egypt." So the Kenites moved away from the Amalekites. Was Saul doing what God told him to do? What do you think? There's two answers, yes or no. this doesn't work. Yes or no? Was Saul doing what God told him to? What do you think? No? Well, God told him to go and destroy them. And it said, Yeah, so he went to the city. He set up an ambush. Looked like he was doing what he was supposed to do, didn't it? Well, let's read on. Then Saul attacked the Amalekites all the way from Havilah to Shur, to the east of Egypt. He took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and all his people he totally destroyed with a sword. But Saul and the army spared Agag and the best of the sheep and the cattle, the fat calves and the lambs, everything that was good. These they were unwilling to destroy completely, but everything that was despised and weak they totally destroyed. So is Saul doing what God wanted him to do? What do you think? No? Okay. Why wasn't he doing what was right? Because he didn't totally destroy them. See, he was told to totally destroy them, but they said, well, this stuff is too good to be destroyed. It's okay to get rid of the bad people mostly, but he even let the king live. I don't know what the story there was, but they left all this other good stuff, like the good cows and stuff like that. It's kind of senseless to destroy them, isn't it? But that's what God told them to do. Oops. We'll keep reading in verse 10. Then the word of the Lord came to Samuel. I am grieved that I have made Saul king, because he has turned away from me and has not carried out my instructions. Carried out part of the instructions, isn't that good enough? Samuel was troubled, and he cried out to the Lord all that night. Early in the morning, Samuel got up and went to meet Saul. But he was told, Saul has gone up to Carmel. There he has set up a monument in his own armor and has turned and gone down to Gilgal. What else did Saul do wrong besides not obeying God? Said he set up a monument to himself in his own honor. Because if he won the battle, right? Of course, who won the battle for him in the first place? But like, I'm the guy. He wanted to look good in the eyes of the people around him. Remember, we get in trouble when we try and look good in the eyes of the people around us, unless we're following God's rule. God would have made him look good anyway, because he won the battle, but he was too concerned about himself. When Samuel reached him, Saul said, "The Lord bless you. I have carried out the Lord's instructions." Did he carry out the Lord's instructions? Did he carry? No. Okay. Didn't carry him out, but he said he did. Said, "What then is this bleating of sheep in my ears?" He knew that those animals were still there. He could hear them. "What's this lowing of cattle that I hear?" So Saul answered, "The soldiers brought them from the Amalekites. They spared the best of the sheep and cattle to sacrifice to the Lord your God, but we destroyed the rest." So he's trying to make it sound good. Oh, well, we can use these for sacrifice. We can use these for sacrifice, so it's okay for me not to follow God's will. That's what he was saying. "Stop," Samuel said to Saul. "Stop." One of the best things you can say to somebody that's doing the wrong thing. Stop. Just stop and think for a minute. Stop. Stop, he said. Let me tell you what the Lord said to me last night. And let's see here, where are we? I'm going to skip what he said. He basically was telling Saul how, look, you were nothing, and then God made you a king. He did all these great things for you, and now you are not listening to him. You're not doing what he tells you to do. And then Saul is kind of like, well, but I did obey the Lord. I went on a mission the Lord assigned me. I completely destroyed the Amalekites and brought back Agag, their king. Did God tell him to bring back the king? What did he tell him to do? What did he tell him to do? To destroy him, right, to kill him. So he says he's doing it, but he's kind of just not quite doing what God wants him to do. The soldiers took the sheep and cattle from the plunder, the best of what was devoted to God, in order to sacrifice them to the Lord your God at Gilgal. Is that what God asked him to do? No, he said totally destroy it. God was testing Saul. He said totally destroy him. And would Saul do what he said? He did some of what he said, only what he wanted to do. He didn't do what he didn't want to do. He was thinking maybe about those soldiers and, oh, they would like me better if I keep the good stuff alive, right? What do you think Samuel's answer to that is going to be? Samuel's saying, look, you thought you could, he said he could sacrifice his stuff to God. But Samuel says, does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the voice of the Lord? When I was little, it'd be like Mom would say, pick up your room. And it's like, I'd go up and I'd come back down with a picture that I drew. Said, I drew this picture for you, Mom. Normally she liked pictures and she put them on the refrigerator, but I didn't do what she wanted me to do. So like, no, don't you get it? To obey is better than sacrifice. We always want to do our own thing. Sometimes we want to do it because we want to please other people. But he says to obey is better than sacrifice. In Acts 5:29, the apostles said, we ought to obey God rather than men. That's when the Pharisees wanted them to do something, or the teachers of the law said, you should do all what we tell you to do, these rules that we made up. But the apostles said we should obey God rather than men. In Galatians 1:10, Paul said, if I pleased men rather than God, I would not be the servant of God. So whose opinion matters most? God's opinion. Okay. When people have a different opinion than God, should you follow it? No, guess not. When I have a different opinion than God, who should I follow? Not myself, not my own ideas. Even if I think, well, this would be good. If I have been following my own opinion, or if I've been following other people's opinion, what should I do? What do you think? If I've been following my own opinion or following other people's opinion, what should I do? Now that I recognize that, what should I do?
What did Samuel say to Saul?
Go ahead. What's that?
Your own.
I should do what?
Your own.
I should do my own opinion. If I've been following my own, I should just keep doing it, huh? Think that's a good idea?
What did Samuel say to Saul when he was doing his own opinion? Stop.
Stop, exactly. If we would just stop. God doesn't know. It's like a lot of people think, oh, I already did something wrong, so I'm too bad. But God says over and over, and he says, just turn. Once you realize you're doing something wrong, just turn. Turn and do what's right. Turn and follow me. All you have to do is turn and follow me. But Saul didn't do that. Saul didn't do that. He wanted other people to like him. That was what he was all about. He wanted to do things so that he would feel good about himself. But God says, just turn around. Just turn around. Just believe me. Just start following me. All you have to do, it's not like, oh, I already screwed up, so who cares? I might as well keep doing screw up things. No. He says, just turn and start doing what's right. Just start following me. So you can always, when you get in a bad spot because you did something wrong, you thought something wrong, oops, just turn around and follow God. All right. You want to try that song?